If you love Arizona real estate, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Iconic Estates, a podcast presented by Russ Lyon, Sotheby's International Realty. I'm your host, Renee Dee, publisher of Iconic Life magazine. You're listening to our first ever Iconic Estates podcast, a brand extension of our monthly Iconic Estates newsletter. This month, learn why people are literally flocking to Arizona for its year-round excitement and awesome climate. On the pod today, I've got Russ Lion Chairman Jim Lyon, who will share with us why he feels Russ Lion is incomparable in integrity and client service. Mike Balzotti, Director of Education for Russ Lyon Sotheby's International Realty, explains why investing in Arizona just makes sense. And finally, a global real estate advisor, Peter Zaidan, who finds homes for people who love cars. Let's get started. Well, I am super excited to have Chairman of Russ Lyon Sotheby's International Realty here as my guest today on the first ever Iconic Estates podcast.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Well, I thought it would be really fun to start out this first podcast with going back on a little bit of history of Russ Lyon. I mean, we've got 77, 78 years under our belt at this point. How did it all get started?
Well, that's a long, I'll try to do a short version of this is in 1947, my grandfather, Russ, and his two kids and his wife, obviously, were on their way to California. He was a big band leader in Detroit, and my Uncle Rusty got sick in Mesa with valley fever, so they had to stay in Mesa, which was the springtime, and they fell in love with Arizona. And back then, you didn't have to go through real estate school. You just went to the Chamber of Commerce and were able to get a real estate license. And it just started that way. And it continued to grow and grow. And my father took over the company in 1968, ran the company till 2000. Well, I take that back. I left the company in 2004 with my partner, Todd Gillenwater. And we opened up our own franchises of Russ Lyon. And in 2008, my father was ready to get out of the business. And the only way I was going to do something with him is I needed the Sotheby's brand. The Sotheby's brand was, like you said, it's iconic to, it's synonymous to our brand. And it was the only brand I would want it. Unfortunately, another company had the brand in Arizona. So I contacted that person, and we were able to merge the companies together. And that in 2010, bought him out, and now we are Russ Lyon Sotheby's International Realty throughout the entire state of Arizona, from Tubac all the way to Flagstaff.
It's awesome. I mean, it's a great company history. So 77 years. So I know from Mike Balzotti, who is a part of Russ Lyon, that one of the things that changed things for Arizona was air conditioning. So people would come through Arizona and it was just so dang hot. And how are you going to enjoy it? But, I kind of experienced the same thing with my family. When I moved to Arizona, every time they would come visit me, they would all then move here. And I know a lot of people have these stories. Once you get to Arizona, it's really infectious. You love it here. And so if you come here, if you enjoy it, you may want to live here. So it happened with your family first.
Exactly. Look, it's 75 degrees in December here. And like you said, people come out to play golf or do whatever, vacation, and they fall in love with it. And the one thing Arizona always has is sun.
Yeah.
And that is a pretty good attractive component of what people are looking for. So, yeah, Arizona's a great place.
It's amazing to be here. I was literally just hiking yesterday, and I know your grandfather called Arizona a slice of heaven. And that was exactly what I was saying as I was standing almost at the top of Pinnacle Peak. I'm like, this is a slice of heaven. In the sun, it was slightly warm. In the shade, it was just cool enough to be super comfortable hiking. There were a ton of people on the mountain because there's a lot of people here this time of year. And it really is a magnificent place. But besides that, people have really caught on. So I moved out here in 93. And when I moved out here, there were people saying, well, where are you going, Renee? Where is Arizona? Like, I feel like it wasn't, of course, it was on the map, right? It's one of 50 states. But that people weren't talking about Arizona so much. And there was a time when all of a sudden we just hit this big growth curve out here, and people from the Midwest and People from all over the country discovered that this was a great place. Where do you feel that turn happened? And I feel like we've been growing ever since.
Our average sales price back in, say, 2008, 9, 10 was so far below what most of the big city average sales prices were.
Yeah, it was awesome.
But people still thought our prices were extremely high. But in comparison, they weren't. California, Denver, Dallas, Chicago. So it was a really good place to buy.
Yeah.
And it still is. And no, our sales price has grown tremendously since we were thrilled to have an average sales price of $400,000. Now we're well over $1.2 million on average sales price.
Yeah, it really, you get a lot. So when I got out here, my family started moving out here because we were from Chicago. And so different family members had an option to spend, X dollars for a little teeny tiny place.
Right.
Next thing you know, they're coming out here. I lived in Ahwatukee at the time, which is fun. That's where we met.
Right.
And that was a huge, corridor of growth. And so people would see this and it's like, oh my gosh, we can get a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house with a yard and a pool for the same price as we can get a 2-bedroom condo in Chicago. So why would we not want a house with a yard and a life and wonderful weather?
Right.
And those prices seemed inexpensive at the time, at least.
Yes.
Yeah.
The COVID effect.
Yeah.
Which still is it's hard to gather of why the real estate boom happened during COVID, and it really did, and it's continued.
Yeah.
And that's not, people say, well, everyone was flocking out of California to come to Arizona. California was going crazy.
Yeah, growing
also.
too.
So
yeah.
People were just shifting, and they realized that maybe they didn't have to stay at one place. They could work at home. Where do I want to be in the winter? What better place than Arizona?
Right. Yeah. If you're going to work from home, you might as well be in Arizona as opposed to someplace snowy and cold or rainy. Yeah. So that's been one of the things that's really worked for us, this entire time, for Russ Lion. This great weather has been wonderful. And, it seems like the accessibility of houses. So now, ever since COVID, we've been booming even more.
Yes.
And this boom has been very exciting to watch from the sidelines. And I love seeing what's happening. But the average price of houses are going up. Quality's going up. The sizes are going up. We're seeing bigger houses than we've ever seen here before. What's been your take on this whole thing?
Well, there's kind of a two type of buyers, it seems to be out here, is we are finding from the Silverleaf area, some mega mansions being sold that are just setting records. But then you're also seeing, and it's more, I wouldn't call more urban, like the Arcadia, the Phoenician area, is smaller units, but really high end, lock and leaves.
Yeah.
And that's very attractive to a lot of people also. So
what's really interesting too is our city, and we're going to talk about the rest of the state of Arizona as well. But in this Phoenix metro area, we're growing out further and further. And so, there remains some affordable houses out there too.
Correct.
But just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful homes here. Why do you think, besides the weather, why do you think people are trusting the idea of buying a house in Arizona? If they're coming from another state.
The value of Arizona real estate has always been strong. It like we've seen the stats for 78 years.
Yeah.
And you can't shy away from the sun. It's just the lifestyle. It's a fantastic like you said, you're on Pinnacle Peak. I go down in the preserve, the Phoenix Mountain Preserve, which was one of the largest preserves of all the nation.
Yeah.
Right in your backyard.
Yeah.
You've got Camelback Mountain. You've got Pinnacle Peaks. So it's a lifestyle, and people thrive on lifestyle. They buy houses, but it's really lifestyle that they're looking for.
I have an umbrella somewhere. I don't know where it is. Every time when it rains, I have to go find it.
Well, if it drops to 65 degrees, we're all in parkas.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just part of the tradition here.
Yeah, Arizona problems. We're not suffering over here at all. What do you feel, you've had a front row seat on the real estate market here. And from a consumer standpoint, when people are looking to work with a real estate company, there's all different flavors out there.
Right.
What do you think is the forte of Russ Lion?
Well, as I said before, is my grandfather and my father started that professional tradition, and it is customers first, always. And it's a white glove service for everybody in all price ranges. We're known as a luxury real estate company, which is great, but luxury doesn't mean $1 million. It means it could be a 500,000, 300,000. It doesn't matter. We give the same service to every client, no matter what the price range is. And the Sotheby's brand is a phenomenal luxury brand with the unbelievable network of advisors throughout the entire country that work together. So if you're selling or buying a home, especially if you're selling a home, we're able to market extremely well to, like you said, the people that are in Chicago or in Dallas that are looking to come to Arizona. That network is the best network in the real estate business, hands down.
Well, and if you want to sell your house, you want to find the people who are looking for a house. And because we've got so many people that are coming in from all around the country, it's great, that you've got a network that can reach those people. So when you're selling your house, there's a confidence. And then when it comes to buying your house, just like you said, the fact that it doesn't matter if you're buying, 500,000 or 5 million, you're going to get the same white glove service, which is, it's an important investment. And so
it's the biggest investment for most everybody.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that our customers or our clients, I should say, have the best experience in buying this investment. And that's what our advisors do. We provide the best service, white glove service to everybody.
So outside of the Valley, you can work with people from Southern Arizona in the two-back office all the way up to Flagstaff. So multiple different lifestyles you can accommodate, from like equestrian, Old West, and I bet the offices have a different feel too.
They do. If you go to two-back, it's a completely different feel than if you go to Camelback Tower office or Pinnacle Peak. If you go to our Flagstaff office, which is more of a Starbucks type of office, so each office does have its different feel to it, but they still take the brand and utilize the Russ Lion Sotheby's brand in each and every market, and each market branding is the same, white glove service to everybody, and from two-back to Flagstaff. So it's been an amazing ride, because when I left, I started in Flagstaff.
I know, I was going to ask you about that. So you and one of the owners, Todd Gillenwater, you were up in Flagstaff. Obviously, I know you guys are outdoorsy guys. So is that what attracted you first?
Yeah, I had an idea of just kind of branching out, because Russ Lyon was basically was just in the Valley. And I approached my father and I said, me and my high school buddy, Todd Gillenwater, would like to go and franchise Russ Lyon. And so he went to Sedona and I went to Flagstaff, and we started there. And then we went to Prescott, and then we came back and bought out the company. So I love Flagstaff and I love Sedona. I love all the outlying areas. Each has its own personality.
Yeah.
And I spent 10 years up there and built a business that was the number one real estate company in Flagstaff and in Sedona. So it's been a really fun ride, and it's been really fun to do it with your high school buddy for all these years. And people laugh at us because they say, you guys bicker, and I said, we're just brothers.
Yeah.
And that's how we work. And we've never had an argument. We've had disagreements, but we've always come to the right conclusion together.
That's awesome. Well, that's because you have shared values.
Thank you. Yeah. And then we added Tom, Tom Licati, and I hired Tom as a salesman, and he was the number one agent or advisor in our company. And then he retired and got into the ownership side. So it's been quite a ride.
Yeah, very exciting. Well, I love the service that's provided. And it's interesting, too, as people think about, what do you get in Arizona? The Phoenix Metro experience, which we were talking about, hiking and biking and restaurants and shopping and all that good stuff. Up in Flag, you feel like you're in, Flagstaff. We call it Flag. Up in Flag, it feels like it's a different experience. You've got pine trees up there. You've got the big mountains. You've got the cold weather, then snow, which is so great that in one state you get all that. You go south and you get this kind of Old West sort of feeling. We've got Arizona wine country down there. which is really cool.
You're an hour and a half to 2 hours from totally different climate and cultural changes from Phoenix. And that's hard to find somewhere else.
Yeah.
As you know, is in the summertime, half the valley goes up to Flagstaff or up north somewhere to Pine Top. And like you said, you can go to the wineries up north in Camp Verde or down south in Patagonia and Tubac. So it's just a wonderful place to be. I have so much confidence in the Arizona real estate because I've seen it I haven't personally seen it for 78 years, but it always has a bounce back. And we saw that in 2008 when things went down, and it bounced back not only even, but better.
So when you're going to real estate conferences and you're talking to other peers in this industry, clearly we're in a hot market. How hot is Arizona? Like, do you have any numbers on like fastest growing markets? Are we like number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Where's all the growth happening in the U.S.?
Right now I haven't looked at the latest, but we're always right up in the top 5 to 10, top tier of the other markets. They ebb and flow, obviously, but the last couple of years we've noticed that the Arizona market pretty much has been the only market that has sustained about the same level as it has for the last 3 years. It hasn't gone crazy. It hasn't gone down. Most of the markets that I go to are fluctuating down a little bit, but we've just seen a very steady real estate market for the last 3 years. Our numbers last year are almost identical to this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Which is great.
Yeah. So one of my indicators too is I spend a lot of time talking to the custom home builders and the architects and people that we work with Iconic Life, and they are telling me they are as busy,
right,
if not more busy than they've ever been, even
correct,
in the last couple of years. So I'm excited about that too. Well, this is super fun to have you on the podcast. Thank you for the launch of this.
Yeah.
Thank you for believing in the idea. We are elated about it.
Well, it's good to see you. You've done a great job with Iconic, and we love being a partner kind of with you, and best of luck.
Mike Balzotti, Director of Education for Russ Lion. Thanks for joining me today.
Treat. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you're going to be the one regular guest every single month because we're going to lean on your love of the numbers and the research to keep us up to date on some of the trends you're seeing, some of the opportunities you're seeing. Mm-hmm. I think we'll have a lot of fun. So we're going to be buddies in this. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, I mean, you're a great researcher and a great disseminator and assimilator of the numbers. Mm-hmm. Why Arizona? Why are people moving here?
Well, you kind of right on the point of going after the numbers. I get accused, I guess is a way to think about it, of being kind of geeking out on numbers. Real estate is a conversation, and so to have a conversation about real estate, you kind of need to know the trends.
Yeah.
And so there have been some substantial trends that have really favored us. Russ Lyon opened its doors in 1947, as you know, and interesting thing about that year is that was the same year that air conditioning came online. So essentially the place was uninhabitable before.
Yeah, exactly. I talked to Jim Lyon a little bit about that too. I mean, one thing changed so much.
Oh, yeah. And if you look up, Wikipedia, the decade of 1950 to 1960, the population in Phoenix went from 100,000 to 300,000. So it tripled in 10 years. And then it's kind of, Maricopa County never really looked back. And so here's a couple of factoids just to get some context on it. Maricopa County is the fourth largest county in the country. Phoenix is the fifth largest metro, or city, excuse me. Phoenix is the fifth largest city, but the 10th largest metro. That's the one that kind of surprised me. We're restricted in terms of, even though we've got a lot of real estate, not, a lot of it's farmland and, again, not developed. And when people, this is popping into my head, so I'll just say it, because people think Arizona, they think water, we don't have any water.
Right.
It's a potential problem. You can't build here unless you can prove a 100-year supply.
Yeah, water assurance.
Yep. And and this is interesting to me. We have 4 million plus people in the metro. And yet that's about 1 million more than we had 10 years ago, and we're using less water. Municipality is using less water. So that's kind of cool.
That is cool. Well, you know what? That talks a little bit about the xeriscaping we've been doing and some of the water conservation efforts and just some of our, plumbing becoming a little bit more efficient too, right?
Exactly.
Obviously we've seen, it just seems like the growth here, it just feels like it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I even feel like there's a little acceleration lately. Is there an acceleration to the growth lately?
Yeah, there's no question about it. The where you particularly see that, and this goes to another sort of pet subject of mine, is how money is moving to Arizona, and so part of that growth is the upper end. You look at 2021, 22. By comparison, the volume of properties over $1 million doubled. Over 1 million is about a quarter of the market. So an explosion in sort of higher end. Part of that, to be true to kind of the reality, is that you've got all this appreciation that's happened as a function of this supply and demand dynamics, and so a lot of the the $700 properties are now $1 million. So what has characterized the market up to this decade has been really the recovery from the crash in 2008. And then you hit 2019, 2020, and that post-COVID time, and it just spiked up. And so you had suddenly this massive demand relative to supply. Okay,
Right.
so
Economics class says the prices go up, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's exactly right. So yeah, when you have too many buyers chasing too few properties, then that has to, okay, so the result of that has been, again, you have to, if you just broad brush it, it's been around 35% appreciation just in the last several years, which is massive.
That's massive.
But then what happens is that starts to impact demand because of affordability. The same house
Right.
is now 35%, 75% more expensive than it was 3 or 4 years ago. Okay.
Yes.
So that's definitely impacted demand. So of course the obvious question now, bated breath everybody, is what does the next 5 years look like? And essentially what it's saying is pretty flat. Now I interpret that as good, because it ain't this,
Right.
and it ain't this. And we're kind of hitting the wall when it comes to affordability under 1 million. Affordability being one of the greatest predictors of future appreciation. So I think stable is good. Probably some more upside potential where there's still very much a seller's market. That would be the high end, particularly the uber high end, say over 3 million.
So I love looking at your charts because they give it to you in a pictorial way where you can just see these things. So I was looking at one of the things you put together talking about the market from the year 2000 to the year of 2020. And the chart looks like exactly the experience I've had living here for, over 20 years, almost 30 years. And I feel like this has been my real estate experience. It's kind of been this. What goes up comes down. What goes down goes up. It's kind of like being on a bike. If you go down a hill, you're going to have to go up a hill.
Yeah.
If you go up a hill, you get to go down a hill. And is that going to be our regular pattern, or did we just end up here? And so you're saying we're kind of going to be here now. It feels like there's just always this ebb and flow on price point, and it's how do we look at the future?
Well, I think you said it really well. I use that verbiage too, ebb and flow. So there's always going to be that. Again, mentioned it before, markets rise and fall. You have to look at or try to make sense of the whys. And so a sustaining factor, kind of connecting the dots in this conversation, is that is there going to continue to be a demand here? Sun's going to continue to shine. That in-migration as a result of people wanting more elbow room and working from home. So that trend that has sustained us from a demand point of view for the last 77 years, that's likely to continue.
One of the things that you put in some of your numbers is you were talking about it doesn't really matter what party you're from. It doesn't matter. This is not a political commentary, but that you're privy to a lot of different surveys that just kind of take the temperature of America. And so one of the things that you have been sharing with us is that Ever since the election, there's kind of an optimism. And maybe that's because we know what the future holds now. Land of uncertainty, even if you don't know where you're going to land, just being uncertain is rough. And whether you like it or not, certainty makes you feel better. So I wonder if that's what it is. But what were you sharing with us about some of the optimistic vibes that are kind of going into this new year?
Well, first off, thanks for reading my stuff.
Yes.
And I'm an aggregator. I'm pulling from other people's the brain trust out there in the collective. And from Realtor.com, I think you were citing something that I cited, which was a survey that showed that there is a general optimism that I think you're right. Again, that it came from that article that the uncertainty factor, less uncertainty, more of a desire that things are going to there'll be change, there'll be a shift. If the 5-year forecasts are correct, and we're looking at a relatively flat next 5 years in terms of appreciation, would that be a reason not to buy? And to me, it is not. The reasons people buy are not just because they want to increase the piggy bank of their equity position.
Right.
They have a reason to move. So I think it's healthy to think that stability sounds pretty good to me right now in the context. So there's that. There's a saying in residential real estate that, time is of the essence. You've heard that?
Yeah.
So one of my little Balzotti-isms is time is the enemy, right? And so usually it doesn't pay to procrastinate. Add to that, if you take the itemized deductions, there's still interest rate deductions. There's you get build equity from principal reduction. You get some appreciation over time. Sweat equity, the things you do to improve a property.
Yep.
And those are all drivers depending on, where you are in life.
It seems like we are just in such a growth time. When you look, I know you've got access to a lot of national information and you talk to a lot of people. Can you talk to me a little bit about how Arizona stacks up on the national market as far as demand?
I'll tell you a good resource is if you look at the moving companies, like United Van Lines, you look at their data.
Yeah.
And we're always pretty much in the top 5 places people are moving to.
Mm-hmm.
So that in-migration, not just from California, but from other states, continues. And there's no reason to think that it wouldn't continue. I know myself, I'm trading, you've been here 25 years, I've been here about 25, 30 years, moved here in 1990, trading 320 days of overcast in Seattle. It's not the rain, it's the overcast. 320 days of overcast for 320 days of sun.
Right.
So those are sustaining factors for us. No, I think from a national perspective, the numbers have been pretty favorable to us, again, when you look at the in-migration aspect and just the context we've been talking about, that why people would want to be here, place in the sun.
Does Arizona real estate feel blue chip to you?
Define blue chip.
I think of blue chip as like buying a good stock.
Mm.
You grab it, you hang on to it. It just feels steady. I don't know if I want to use the word steady or if I want to use the word safe. And again, there's no guarantees in anything in this. Mm-hmm. But blue chip feels less volatile to me, feels a little more classic, reliable, maybe a slow grower, but a consistent grower.
Mm-hmm. Built to last.
Built to last.
Yeah, well said. Again, we can connect the dots when looking at how Maricopa County has been a top growth county for 77 years, ever since air conditioning.
Yeah.
No reason to think that's going to change. So again, when you look, circling back to supply and demand dynamics, if we have inherently a limited supply relative to demand, that the demand being driven by demographics, people want their place in the sun, job growth, et cetera, those factors they're not new. They've been with us. They are sustained. They are blue chip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to how this started. You said that real estate is a conversation.
Yeah.
And so we all love talking about real estate anyhow. But if we're going to get into this real estate conversation, we want to be talking to somebody that we trust. And we want to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about and somebody who can answer our questions reliably.
Yeah. And, you've also triggered in me another important concept, which is that we've been talking necessarily so kind of broad brush, general market, and we've drilled down on, bifurcation and price points and some of those distinctions. But truly, you can't be a trusted advisor and try to be all things to all people. So I think a hint for those out there, thinking about making a move is find someone who really knows the market segment that you're most interested in, because there are idiosyncrasies associated with different market segments that, at the end of the day, the quality of the schools or the proximity to things or the nature of the lifestyle or the golf communities or the public or the private. I mean, it's just a myriad of details that as a local practitioner with expertise in a particular market segment. But what's interesting is that with all the technology that's empowering people in their choices, for example, we know everybody goes online to look at houses. I mean, why wouldn't you, right?
So fun.
Well, it turns out now that not only do 95% of people start their search online, but over half the people surveyed now say that they identified the home they ended up purchasing. They first identified it online. In spite of the fact that people are empowered with all this information, you can get school reports, you can get all this information, the particularly younger folks that like going after the tech and using the technology, what they found is it is overwhelming the amount of information, and so they actually value the local expertise, that specialization, even more.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
if you are a non-professional person and you are, just scrolling real estate on the internet, that scrolling doesn't always tell you the whole entire story. Where are the roads? Where's the future development? Where are some of the things that you want to know about? And so that's where you're looking for that local expert to support your research, your decision-making, and all of that. And so,
it's our job to provide the processes and the practices and all the good information to help people. But it's really kind of the secret sauce, at least at Russ Lyon, in my opinion, is just the power of the association. There's a palpable sense of, it's not a team sport, and yet there's a lot of cooperation. We meet together, we tour together, party together. So you can get kind of a graduate school education just by rubbing shoulders with colleagues that, have got their stripes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I love that about our organization.
Good. Well, this is fun. Well, we're going to be doing this every month, Mike. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today. A pleasure to have you. And we're going to use some of those amazing graphs that you put together too.
Good. Great questions. And thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to our time.
I'm excited to be here today with Peter Zaden, who is the Homes for Carguys guy. So that is such a great niche in real estate. Cars. So this is the month of January, and I think of this as like car month here in Arizona with Barrett Jackson and all the exciting things going on. I want to talk to you about Homes for Carguys, but I want to find out, how did you get started in real estate?
I moved here in 2014 with my family. I didn't have a career. I had just finished a previous career in the restaurant business, and here I came. And I had to feel what was here. And I remember talking to my dad and he was saying, Arizona's so beautiful. Where do they get their money? And I took some time and I realized, I said, well, all of this is real estate based. Everything in Arizona is real estate based. They're either selling land, or you have a title company, or you have a lender, or everything here is based on the growth of our community. And so by nature, I'm a car guy my whole life. And so I wanted to do something that would bring that together.
How do you tie real estate into car guys? Because there are so many car guys out here. And from my vantage point with Iconic Life magazine, we are writing more and more about houses with, of course, everybody's got to have a 2-car garage or a 3-car garage. Well, now everybody's got to have an 8-car garage or a 10-car garage. And we're seeing houses built with 75-car garages. What's happening?
So first off, you have to say, well, why do they move here? Right? So they move here because they're in Michigan and they can't drive their car for most of the year because it's cold and snowy and nasty. And you don't really want to drive a $5 million car in the snow.
Right.
And so, you definitely don't want to do that. But when you're here with those cars, all of a sudden you can drive them year round. And so you have a Ferrari here and you can truly enjoy it instead of leaving it in your garage for 6 months of the year and just looking at it. Here, you're going to the car show. There's 10 car shows every weekend.
Right.
I have a newsletter that talks about that, and it goes out to all of my network and
That's
following.
awesome.
And it's great, and it keeps me in touch with them, and it keeps them in touch with what's going on in the car scene. And so it's pretty neat to be able to bring people together like that. And so you're going to buy a house, and I'm good at this, and so let me help you. And so years and years go by, and you become friendly.
From my vantage point, I'm seeing a little bit of movement on this topic, that I'm seeing architects starting to draw houses with more garages, starting to draw garages with ceiling heights that could allow for a car lift.
Right.
And then I'm also seeing this new trend of like this car bar thing, where people want to build a house where they can have their bar entertainment area with a view of the vehicle. So what are you seeing from a real estate standpoint of what's available to a car person?
So the difference between having a beautiful garage with a house attached to it and having a beautiful garage with a giant glass wall, it's priceless. The look that car guy gives that garage when he walks in and sees this huge glass wall it's a totally different thing. A garage should be finished. A garage should be shown with cars in it. And this is a lifestyle too. I'm selling lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's no different than waterfront property. It's no different than a golf property. It's the same thing. You're selling something normally to people that can choose whatever they want, and you're selling them the lifestyle that they're looking to have. And that's really, to me, that's what Scottsdale is about. People are coming here for a lifestyle. Most of my clients have 2-3 homes, and they're here because they want to have fun.
Right.
And so that's what this does.
Yeah. Is there a percentage you could even assign to this? Like if you're thinking about, people who love cars and, you're talking about car guys, and most often they're car guys. They are sometimes car gals. And so you're working with both. But when it comes to looking for these houses, it sounds like you're finding scarcity. You're just not finding enough houses for as many people as want this.
For a couple reasons. On a regular basis, I have pockets full of pocket listings because I know that they'll sell the house, and oftentimes we talk about even what price they want for it, but they don't want anybody walking through their house. They don't want anyone seeing their car collection. I've had people sell the house off market and not let me put the location in the MLS, not put any photographs in the MLS, nothing, because they're private people. So we're selling something that oftentimes is I have a house right now that's one of one. There's nothing else, anything like that. And so what's that worth? What's it worth to the right buyer?
Yeah.
So my entire game is to market what I have to the right buyer. I don't care to put that out to the entire world and say, look at this, because most of the world doesn't care about it. But the people that do care about it, that's priceless to them, because you're building a garage today. It's $1 million build for a garage, and it's 3 years waiting.
Yeah.
For a 6,000 or 7,000 square foot garage. It's significant. Plus, they want it to be special.
If somebody had a substantial house, and even a substantial house with a substantial garage, what would be the components of that garage? Again, what is this car person looking for in the garage? They want it to be long enough to park any vehicle. They want it to be, I'm going to assume, tall enough maybe to be able to stack vehicles if necessary. What else should be in there? Like, what else are they looking for that I, a non-car person, wouldn't even think about?
So everybody's different. And every garage reflects the person that's in it, and oftentimes the collection that they have. If you have somebody that enjoys off-road vehicles, a drain in the floor so you can rinse them off. If you have somebody I've had clients with race teams, built-in jacks in the floor. They don't want to use a lift. They want something
custom,
specific.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a tall garage because they have tall stuff. Most of my clients have really short cars.
Yeah.
Because they go faster.
Low to the ground. Yeah.
The more you dial it down, the better you can be at it, and the more value you bring.
Well, I love it. I think I told you when you walked in the door, I'm like, I can't wait to talk to this Peter guy. He's a genius. It's a great niche because you're in such a highly specialized area. And if somebody's looking for a 10-car garage or a 20-car garage, and you're the guy who's making it his entire business to know where they are,
Yes.
Makes a ton of sense. So, we're in car month now. It's Barrett Jackson month, and I usually go every single year. And I am just amazed when I go to Barrett Jackson at the number of cars that are changing hands.
So Barrett Jackson is the most famous. It's what everyone knows. It's they're on TV all the time.
Yeah.
Craig has done a great job of pushing it out there, and Steve. There are other shows that are happening in the Valley at the time, and so you may bring 300,000 people through Barrett Jackson, but there's 4 other auctions that are happening, and they specialize in different things. Barrett was always muscle cars. They're kind of changing it now and getting more exotic and more current. But you have Bonhams, you have RM, Sotheby's. Gooding is no longer, but it was a great show. And so people were coming here. It became a destination and a bucket list thing for them to do. And a lot of the time they come in and they say, wow, this is fabulous. All these people are driving around in Ferraris, and we don't even turn around. A Lamborghini flies by. We don't even stop and look at it anymore. Oh yeah, that's whatever. On the East Coast, a Lamborghini drives by and you're excited. I have to go see it. But here it's constant. And I'm very fortunate to be in a place where I'm saturated by this. Every show, every event. It's wonderful.
What is the biggest garage somebody's asked you to find for them? How many cars?
I'm working with a client right now who has a 100-car collection, 100 plus. When you get to 100 cars, it became a job. It's not his career. It's not his job. It's his passion. Mm-hmm. When you get to 100 cars, now you need someone to drive them, to maintain them, now you're dealing with something like Jay Leno's garage.
Right.
You need people to work on those things. So there's no such thing as a 100-car garage here. So then they're looking at, I met a gentleman last night. He says, I'm looking for a commercial building in the air park. That's a fortune. Mm-hmm. For less money than that, and everybody has a different use, but for less money than that, you can build a magnificent garage on your house, or find someone else's magnificent garage on their house that's for sale. I said, that's what I do.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that is what I do. I want to connect somebody that had no idea that what they wanted existed. And they do.
It's really exciting.
It's very, very cool.
So again, because there could be women collecting cars too, but given the fact that so many of your clients are men looking for garages, mm-hmm. a lot of these guys have to have wives or girlfriends or partners mm-hmm. or significant others in their life. And so the leading indicator for some people is not a garage. So how are you playing psychologist with these couples to help one person get the garage of their dreams and somebody else get a house that they're in love with as well?
So very perceptive of you to figure that out. I don't show the garage until last. Because as soon as I show the guy the garage, he doesn't see lost. Anything else. He's gone. And that's not good because he doesn't remember the rest of the house.
As a magazine publisher, if you were to have said to me 10 years ago, which is when you got started in this niche, 10 years ago, I was not thinking about writing stories about super garages, garages as lounges, garages as bars, garages as 20, 30, 40, 50, 75 car garages. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a story idea I was thinking about. Mm-hmm. And if it was, I wasn't probably going to find any sources to be able to support that.
Right.
Today, we do write stories about these garage mahals, we call them, mm-hmm.
because
they're fabulous and they're amazing and they're luxurious and they're mm-hmm. amenity filled. I'm blown away at what's happening in garages. What's your perspective on this?
So you're 100% right. When I started, I can't tell you how many people told me, don't quit your day job. Luxury realtors telling me, you can't do that. Make sure you keep selling regular houses. You can't. I believe you have to be 100% or not at all. You have to be 100% committed to what you're doing. And as I said, it was a struggle for a really long time. The market has changed, especially in Scottsdale and surrounding. We have things like toy barns. Jason and Paul do a great job of that. They were just getting started when I was starting in this stuff. That stuff, I mean, as soon as they build these things, they're in demand.
Yeah.
And you have other companies doing the same thing. That you're not just buying a garage. The garage is, if you're just looking at the space, that's really expensive. You're buying a culture. You're buying, they have car shows there. I'd like to see that in a car community, in a house community. I'd love to do a whole community of 30 houses with 8 car garages and have a clubhouse in the middle. I think it'd be fabulous.
Yeah.
You can't do that in many states, but you could do that here.
Yes. Well, I just feel like we're having a, like a garage essence, a renaissance of garages that they're just getting bigger, better. And there's just more conversation about it. So you're in the right place at the right time, Peter Zaden.
The horses are leaving and the horsepower is taking over. That's really what we're seeing. If you look in anywhere in the valley, places that had horses, typically you can build a garage there. And so the stables are turning into, I've done that. I have clients that I walked in and saw the stable. I said, this is your house. And they're going, you're out of your mind. And the next thing you know, it's a 4,000 square foot magnificent museum garage.
Wow.
And so, you can do it. And, time, vision, and money, that's all you need. You can do anything you want with those 3 things.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's kind of what we see.
I mean, that is fascinating. Well, Peter Zaden, thank you for joining me. If you are a car person, you got to talk to Peter.
I love what I do. I'm connecting people that want something with something that exists. And it's pretty cool. It's really pretty cool. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and hit the bell so that you never miss an episode. And if you'd like, join our VIP list to receive our Iconic Estates newsletter. Please go to russlyon.com or the link in the show notes. I'd be so grateful if you'd take a moment to tell us what you think by rating and reviewing this pod. Until next month, I'm Renee Dee. Thanks for joining us.